Yes. When I first heard about the program, I was the art specialist at Education Works, which is a large nonprofit here in Philly that serves impoverished neighborhoods. We do after school and summer camp programs. So my job as the art specialist was to create different programs based on the arts to kind of enhance what the students were doing in their after school and summer camp program.
As the director of youth development, I had 5 or 6 programs under me. So I was in charge of all of the 6th through 12th grade programming. So we had a federally funded talent search program. We have a leadership development program. We were awarded a 21st Century Community Learning Center. And that was kind of like the big thing, is that we developed that from ground up during the time that I was in the fellowship.
This particular agenda that I oversee is in the area of education, and we promote education largely through out-of-school time programs that function during the school day to support schools and their students, as well as mentoring.
When I started in the fellowship program, I was the after-school coordinator for Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. And coordinators handle citywide responsibilities for the program. So I was responsible for the overall training of staff that directly worked with the after-school children. They are seasonal staff, so training was a very big piece of my responsibility.
I am the program director of Mighty Writers, which is a kids nonprofit writing center in Philadelphia. We are 3 years old, and I'm one of the co-founders there. And I think my position is unique because even though my title is program director, I do very high-level administration as well as volunteer recruitment and more mid-level administration. And then in the after-school program, I am the direct service provider managing all of the kids and volunteers who come through our door.
Currently, I am the facilitator for After School Matters. This is my second year doing that. And now that we have an After School Matters Level 1 and Level 2, I am the Level 1 co-facilitator along with Mike McEwen. And I also had the privilege of being able to co-facilitate the Level 2 After School Matters Fellowship.
When I heard about the fellowship, I was kind of at the point where I was looking for next steps. So, I had grown in the position a lot. It had really changed with me and through the years, so I wasn't sure what was next. So when I saw the program, that was perfect.
I was not necessarily trained in youth development, even though I had taught prior to coming to the position at Mighty Writers. And I'm also a bit of an academic, so I think I was looking for something where I could kind of contextualize my day-to-day experience within a sphere that was somewhat new to me, which is kind of youth development and after-school programming.
And I just saw it as an opportunity when I heard fellowship and the research that, for me, a way to grow, because I had been away from going to school for a while. And it really does excite you to meet people that are interested in the same thing and continue on.
I have struggled in out-of-school time to really believe in and trust that there was high-quality professional development for the field. So when I heard about the fellowship, it was recommended to me by my supervisor at the time, and I was really interested in the long-term nature of it and how it was directly linked to practice, because one of my big critiques about professional development is that it's typically isolated workshops, there's no follow-through, there's not necessarily a link to your actual practice. So that's what turned me on to the fellowship.
And so it just made sense to have this particular opportunity, which I see as sort of an advanced kind of leadership opportunity for out-of-school time professionals that may have been in the field for a little while and need something extra. And so we thought that it was a good fit. We actually were able to include the fellowship as a part of the Philadelphia Out-of-School Time Professional Development Project. So we incorporated it into that overall project.
It's really a process where we walk the participants through inquiry so that they're able to go back to their sites, their local context, and really be able to look at things with new eyes. And everything that they've been seeing all along, but to really be able to take an inquiry stance on what it is that they're doing. So for some, it's directly looking at the students that they serve, because that's who they have direct access to. For some, it may be in terms of the staff, because maybe they do more in terms of professional development, but really looking to see how they can improve their practice, and taking an inquiry approach to that.
So until I started working at Education Works, I really didn't think of OST as a field, like a career. You know, it was kind of, my career was art education, not necessarily out of school time education. So the first time, you know, going into the fellowship classroom and being there with other people who kind of identified themselves as OST professionals, it automatically put my mind in a different place, because, you know, the education aspect of the job is, I love it, but the OST, like doing, I don't want to be in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of the classroom, and kind of realizing that that was really a thing, you know, and other people had been doing it for years and they kind of considered themselves OST educators, that was kind of life-changing actually for me.
It wasn't what I expected at first. It really took a turn, but an interesting and a good one.
I saw Mighty Writers as an opportunity to kind of bridge my world of writers and my world of education. And I knew something about those, but the youth development piece that is a huge part of working with youth out of school time was something that was new to me, and I was making it up as I went along, and I knew I had more to learn.
The fellowship was by far the best professional development I have ever received. I absolutely loved it. I got more out of it than I have any other professional development I've done in my career.
I would say that year in Philadelphia, we built an awesome community. I think there were only 9 of us by the end, but I know what all of those professionals do in the city now. I have built partnerships with them.
It's interesting because I actually read my I don't know whether it was a midterm or a mid-year reflection we did, and I read that before I came today, just to see where I was at that time. And a lot of it talked about how open people were, and that at the end of each session we felt like we didn't have enough time. We could have stayed for another hour or two, because just when we got going, the motor started going and the discussion started to go, it seemed like we're done.
Where, like, when you go to a workshop or you go to a conference or whatever, you meet people once, but through the fellowship you meet with the same people throughout the city on a weekly or, you know, bi-weekly basis. So real authentic relationships and networking could occur.
We really layer the writing so that it builds off of each other, so that there's not just this one big final project at the end, because what's happening is that people don't realize they're already engaging in inquiry. And so it really helps when they start off writing about their context. And so one of the pieces they have to write is what we call the day in the life of. And so they really have to be able to write down one full day. What's everything that happens in this workday?
Part of the inquiry process is, you know, just jotting down notes. So I had a program, the Drama Queens, Dream Realizing and Mission Accomplishing Queens, and actually that's what my paper was on, Girls in Leadership. It's a leadership program. And, you know, the first day I took notes and I went back and I was kind of reviewing them. It stood out to me like I have this leadership program and I'm not offering any leadership opportunities for girls. You know, I'm not giving them any chances to make decisions. You know, it's kind of, I had this curriculum that I had developed and I was just going in and facilitating. And I'd been doing it for 2 years, so it wasn't like it was a new program, but, you know, being able to kind of take a step back and look at it with eyes from the outside.
I think in the education profession, there's this expectation that you're going to become a content knowledge expert and you're going to reach this level of knowing, and then you get a certificate and you're supposed to teach what you know to others and get them to know it. And the whole concept of we should never be content with what we're knowing, and what we know is never really the ultimate truth or all there is to know, I think for teachers is a very uncomfortable thought, because the whole profession is based around being a master of a certain level of knowledge. And the fellowship basically was like, no, you know, you should never be content with what you know, and you should always question what you know. You know, people knew the world was flat, and people knew the earth was the center of the universe, right? And it took inquiry and people questioning in order to get to the next level of truth.
Inquiry was something that, watching my mom as a 4th grade teacher, that I think good teachers kind of do inherently, and it's built into their practice. But I think an opportunity to put language to getting better every year and constantly asking those questions about how we can improve our practice, and having that community sped that up for me definitely in the past year.
We watched a class that had been taped a long time, a while ago, a teacher, and, we took notes on it, kind of doing inquiry on that piece right there. So, we got kind of information on how to do that with our own work.
My initial inquiry was going to be what I could do. I was a brand new coordinator. It was my first year in the position. Not that I've been with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation for almost 20 years, but I started as a kid. So it was my first experience being the coordinator of after school. I do have a teaching background. I have a master's in education, so I really wanted to bring what I could to the program. How could I enhance the program? What could I do? And it really ended up being not about what I could do, but how I could take the seasoned staff, as I referred to before, people that have been in the after-school programming, and continue and stick with it because they love it and are doing such a great job. How could I take those seasoned individuals and help them train brand new staff coming in, RSIs, to get them to kind of motivate and stimulate them to see how, they were so tied into the community, they were so tied into the children that they were supervising. And I wanted to, so the inquiry was, how could I use the seasoned staff in a training component to train their peers?
We always say that in terms of inquiry, part of it's inside of you. It's not something, I think sometimes people look for a very conventional method of education. There's somebody in the front of the class, they're teaching you, they're depositing in you, and inquiry is not like that at all. Inquiry is very personal. So even with 15 different papers that Mike and I have to read, they're all different. They've all taken different approaches, and none of them are wrong. I tell them, as long as this is something that comes from your heart and your passion, and you're invested in this, you can't go wrong. And the other thing that I think sometimes frustrates people, but by the end of the process they've understood that, is that there is no one answer. Inquiry is about, when you've come to what you think is the answer, questioning that, and this continual process of questioning and looking again.
It took me from almost being very task-oriented to getting a lot of things done based on my view, to being more people-oriented and realizing that I might not have the right answers, and it's okay to question, and it's okay to utilize other people's knowledge. I just feel like it completely widened my perspective in so many different ways.
I think the inquiry made it interesting because I looked at things differently. I wasn't looking at a detailed list of bullet points I wanted followed. It was really, what's happening here? What am I noticing? What am I seeing? And constant notes that I would be taking, surveys I would put out, or just speaking to after-school RSIs at trainings when I met up with them. How are things going? What's happening? And they were more than giving with information.
My mentor in the program, Marcia Pincus, when she, that next week when I was telling her, like, oh my gosh, this is, I came in and I was kind of buoyed, like, this is a real thing, this inquiry, really works.
Vanessa Brown, who used to be the director for the Philadelphia Writing Project, she's the one who asked me to come on as facilitator when I first started. And she comes in and she actually talks to the fellows about inquiry as a life stance. Not just in terms of using it professionally, but also in terms of, with your daily interactions with people, with things that go on in the world. What would happen if we took an inquiry approach? What would happen if before we responded, before we acted, we stood back, and had more of a panoramic view? And what if we began to question things before we just accepted them as the answers? So inquiry is absolutely something that informs so many facets of your life.
The inquiry part, as unnerving as it was for me, it was also exciting, because I kind of like relaxed a little bit and just enjoyed what I was seeing.
We had a special roundtable with one of the former fellows just a few weeks ago, where, you know, we kind of had a special session and really focused on her inquiry research, and a lot of her principal was there and several of her colleagues, and we really got a chance to dig in and talk extensively about, you know, what it is that she and her colleagues were doing in partnership with the out-of-school time programs in their schools, and how could they actually encourage other teachers to do the same. She shared a lot of tools that could potentially be shared even with other teachers in other schools.
Right away there was a change in some of the attitudes. So I mean, the girls, when you're working with young people, you know, the biggest part of success with them is the relationship. So they love me and I love them, and that doesn't necessarily mean the program itself is successful. It just means like I'm a nice person and Miss Brandi sometimes brings us pizza, you know. But when I changed it and I said, okay, you know, well, how it happened was I had a poem that I wanted the girls to work on, and one of the girls who had like the worst attitude, she was like, why do we have to do this? You know, I want to do she wanted to do Maya Angelou, Phenomenal Woman, instead of another poem about being a woman. And the next time when I came back, that next class, after I realized I wasn't really giving opportunities for them to make decisions, you know, I said, you know, such and such gave the idea of let's do Phenomenal Woman, and I thought about it and I think that's a great piece, so let's go with that. And automatically, you know, before she was kind of in the corner, her head was down, and she only popped up to kind of make remarks about what she didn't like and what was not working. Mm-hmm. But I mean, she started becoming involved because she felt ownership over the idea, and you know, she felt like she had a reason to be a part of this program. So I mean, it was really automatic that the change started happening when I allowed her, and there was like two girls, like the older girls, to really be leaders and to start, you know, putting into practice some of the tools that I was giving them.
And really giving youth a say in what was going on. And I think that comes from my teacher background, where my teacher background is, nope, we're going to design a lesson and it's going to be done this way, and, you know, then whatever. So that's kind of how I approached program development, where I was like, okay, we're going to design it, it's going to happen, and the kids are going to respond how they're going to respond. And involving kids in the process of what program, like what activities are we going to offer? Like one of the things we did was design a youth interest survey, and we surveyed all the youth before we designed our enrichment programs of the 21st Century Learning Center. And I think that by involving youth in the process of the development of the program was the biggest thing.
At this point, I'm a program manager, and I oversee a district with 22 facilities, and supervising staff and knowing the standards and expectations for the facilities and seeing what they're doing now. Some are meeting the mark, some are not. How could I help those that are not meeting the mark? And just collecting information from the centers that really function at an optimal level, kind of share that with those that are functioning a little bit below standard. But that's a constant. I think the question's always there.
It was interesting going through the fellowship at the same time that we were building this program from ground up, because there was a lot of insight from the other practitioners in the fellowship and from the readings that we did and all that kind of stuff on what is high quality program development. And it was a very fun process because there was like this creative freedom that, you know, I had in the organization because it was brand new. And like I did things like I developed, as a part of what I did in the fellowship, a program quality assessment that like I went through and I did it on all of the programs, and then like I met with my staff and we came up with what we consider quality indicators that we need to meet in order to say we're a program of excellence. And now that assessment is being used across all of our programs, not just youth development.
Particularly with the mixed model, which is what we have more of this year between in-classroom teachers and out-of-school time professionals. And to realize that not only that they have a common language, but that they have a common struggle and that they have, very common goals.
I was trying to lead a team that had never done it before when I had never done it before, right? So it was almost like I felt like some of it was the blind leading the blind, and I valued the fact that I had this entire group of people that were more experienced than I was in the field just to completely lean on and rely on and to hash ideas out with. And the readings and all the resources we had that, had other best practices that were shown in other programs. I mean, I just felt like it was exactly what I needed at exactly the right time, which is probably why I got so much out of it. Like, for me, it was just perfect timing for where our unit was at, where I was at in the fellowship. It just all kind of meshed perfectly for me. Like, I don't know that our programs would be working right now if I didn't have the insight of the fellowship and of the people that were in it with me.
I think the out-of-school time field certainly sees the need to be able to contribute towards, student success in school. And, so I think that this is something that has to happen, in order for that to be successful, the out-of-school time professionals and the teachers need to have better relationships and connections, and, they need opportunities to collaborate.
After I finished, I had two colleagues who started the program. One who actually finished the program, really amazing. She did her inquiry on literacy, and that program now is really booming in our organization. We have a non-readers program that she developed based on the needs that she saw after doing the program. And we go into 18 different schools and help kids who are not reading learn how to read with this program that she developed. Other people have been really interested, and our organization is shifting because we have so many different levels of employees. So we have, paraprofessionals, we have, MEDs, we have so many different levels. So I think what it's doing is it's making us realize that at the paraprofessional or the site coordinator level that we can have, we can raise the bar, we can raise our expectations, and most of them are in school now to get their degrees. So they're realizing that the organization is starting to take, professional development and learning about being an OST professional and being a better OST professional seriously.
We actually had roundtables, and individuals from the city and close by came and sat in on our inquiries and asked us questions, which was a really neat, I thought, professional experience to hear those, the feedback and the positive affirmations from individuals that were in the field and pretty much higher up in the field, that they really appreciate the inquiries and the work that we were doing.
So after they finish their piece, the goal is for them to be able to submit it to Afterschool Matters Journal and to see if it will get published. So that's one of the main goals, is to give them the support that they need to have this piece that will be published. The second one is that each of those fellows has to contact their local facilitator, who is now with a new cohort of fellows, and to see how those facilitators want to incorporate their experience so they're able to give back, to mentor this new group, whether it be at a writing retreat, because now they've done so much writing towards this work, whether it be really explaining the inquiry process because it's so nebulous at times. But that's the other part. So it's absolutely informing the field by being able to publish, but also to be able to mentor someone else who's at the very beginning stages, and explain that process to them from somebody who's just gone through it.
Well, since the program, I've been promoted. I have a position called the Education Programs Manager. that came after the program. It wasn't a position that we had before, but after the program and doing the inquiry, I was able to see that I knew that I wanted to make a bigger impact, but I think at that point, I kind of knew how to articulate the type of impact I wanted to make. I was able to kind of say what I was good at and what my strengths were and where I could be a bigger asset to the organization. So I wrote up a job description and, submitted it, and it was a couple, it took a little while, and then I finally had to say, look, this is what I want to do. I'm not the art specialist anymore. I am an OST educator, and I need more responsibility. I need to be able to do more with the knowledge that I have to make a bigger impact on the kids that we're serving.
But I think the biggest impact is probably on the new programs and the quality of the programs. And like our leadership development unit had 300 more students last year and partnered with twice as many schools than we had the prior year. In the 21st Century Community Learning Center, we served 600 more kids than we ever did before. And I don't think kids come if the programs aren't enticing. So, through the work, last year we served almost 1,000 more kids than we had the year before, which I think is a testament to the programming and, the different level of service that was created as a result of the process.
Our cohort was finished, and I think it was the next session starting, and it was just so interesting and almost comical to see how unbalanced they were. Like, what did you hear? What did you hear? I was like, oh, it'll all come together. You're like a graduate almost, because you were, we were so unbalanced in the beginning, and it was interesting to see. That's what we looked like a couple months ago, just starting out. So I had that opportunity, and I was glad for it.
It's really empowering, to know that people are looking at the work that you do and thinking that it means something. It's hard, especially in kind of administrative roles in nonprofits and in in the OST field. We don't get any glory. Of course, we shouldn't. We're here. We're not here for recognition or acknowledgement, but it sure feels good to be acknowledged. And it sure feels good to have something like your final paper and all these folders with all your notes in it to say, I'm doing something, I'm making a difference.
I appreciate everything the foundation did and all the funding that was received to make it happen, because it seriously was like a life-changing professional development for me. And I haven't had anything like it since, and I didn't have anything like it before that.
To be a lifelong learner, to continue. And I think that's a constant for me. But the idea of the inquiry really helped me to understand how it could help me in my work. Not just to think about things, write things down. You don't have to look at them every day. It might be 6 months from now I can come back and say, oh, I had this going. Now where am I? What can I add to it? And how can we keep moving and evolving?
I think at our largest we may have had perhaps 100 people come. When you're talking about a journal, a national journal, the amount of viewership, people who read this and who will be able to be impacted by it becomes so much greater. And so I think that's one of the main reasons that it's one of our goals, is because this is good work, and how to be able to make this work go public, and to be able to make a difference in the world.
It's something worth investing in. I know United Way values it, and I think that it's something that can really help to support the field and help to build the field and help to improve the skills and competencies of staff, and those staff can help to build the competencies of their peers. So I think it's really a valuable experience, and particularly as we attempt more and more to connect out of school time with the school day. I just think it's really critical even for teachers to to see the value in this, and for for funders to assist us in keeping it going.